Hi everyone, welcome back. For those who watched my first video, this is going to be my second makeup tips video on 2 ways to contour. So what to remember when you're contouring is that this should happen after you've already laid powder down. So you've already done your foundation and powder, unless you're doing cream contour. You know, we're only going to be dealing with powder contour today because, as you can see, I already have my foundation laid down, ready to go. And I'm going to show you a more severe way and a more subtle way to contour. So a lot of people find that it's difficult to ascertain the difference between a contour and a bronzer. Now the only difference is that bronzer is warm and is to warm up the skin, and contour is a cool grey tone shade that is used to push areas back that maybe you're not as keen on. Maybe you just want to make your face look a bit more chiseled or slimmer. You know, a lot of people use it for that. If you have like a septum that hangs down and you're not keen on it, you can always put a little there. There are no rules to contour. It's one of those, it's a personal preference. So as you can see, I've laid down my foundation ready to go. I'm going to be showing you first on one side of my face how to contour using the Benefit Hoola Matte Bronzer. So as you can see, this has a nice warm tone to it. It is a matte shade. It's a really nice warming tone. I tend to use this for day makeup. So this is something I do if I want more of a subtle contour, but I still want a contour to be there. It's something that some people like to use instead of contour altogether. They never like it too dark. So there are many brushes you can use for a contour. It's mainly, again, everything about makeup is personal preference. It's what makes you feel comfortable. Maybe it's the first way you learn how to do it. Maybe you've experimented. Maybe it's just something that you've never done any differently and you can't remember how you learned to do it, but this is the way you do it. That's absolutely fine. These are just my experiences and my tips on how to do things. It will not suit everybody, but it will suit some people. So I'm going to be using this one first, the Hoola Benefit, and this is a bronzer. So the main thing to remember with a contour or bronzer is to use a brush that's right for you. Now for this one I'm going to use a little brush so you can see the difference, and then for the big contour I'm going to use an angular brush so you can see which one you might prefer. So I'm going to go in with the Hoola and I'm going to do the left side of my face, and we're just going to go in from my tragus to around where the arch of my eyebrow would be if I didn't shave my eyebrows off, and just blend that line in. Now I also like to go round here and just follow my hairline round just to frame my face a little. As you can see, it's more subtle around where I've framed my face and my head, and I'm going to go about halfway because we're going to do the other side in proper contour, as you can see here. Now if you don't like it to be this dark, there is a technique you can use called veiling. So veiling is basically where you get powder and you just basically press powder over the contour and blend with your powder brush. So this isn't the same brush I used for the bronzer. This is my powder brush, which is a separate brush. It's fluffier, it's less dense, so it's going to diffuse powder a little bit more. So you can see here that I've really blended it out now, and it's looking a bit more natural. So it's really up to you how dark or how light you like it. You can just keep going back in and keep diffusing it out until you get the right shade. Some people like to do under here around their jawline just to give them a bit of definition. That's also something that you can blend out to make sure it doesn't look too harsh. But this is basically what I would say is a good way to use a bronzer. And on the other side of my face I'm actually going to use a contour and a bronzer together so you can see how a bronzer can be used here instead of a contour, or as well as a contour on this side. So for the contour side I'm going to use the Too Faced Cocoa Contour, and it looks a little bit like this. It's really pretty. It's got these lovely grey tone shades for a lot of different skin types in there. It's cute. So I'm just going to start with the lightest shade and build up from there. So again, from my tragus here, obviously I can see where my cheekbone sits, and I'm just going to blend that down. And then I'm going to go in with the next darkest shade and bring that in and start blending it out up here, just to give it that. Now if it starts to look a little bit mucky or a little muddy, you can always keep blending it. It will eventually blend in. You can also use your powder brush again to do your veiling with. So here you can see that I've got my contour, and I feel here like it's a little bit low. It's come a little bit lower than I'd want it to. So I'm just going to use my powder brush to blend that bit away and give it a sharper line. So you can see this side is the bronzer, it's warmer, and this side is the contour where it's cooler. And then I'm going to go back in with my lighter shade and just come around my head. And I'm only using a very light hand with this because I don't want to look too crazy. Now people with very light hair might not want to do this, or not everybody wants to do this with their face. I mean, I don't usually contour around my head, I have to admit, but a lot of people like to. So it is down to personal preference. I'm just going to make this super snatched up here and just keep blending it out. So once you've got your contour in place, obviously this side's much lighter because it's just bronzer on its own. I can then take my Hoola bronzer again and my little brush, get in there and just blend above the contour to give it that warm effect. And I'm just blending this out to give a warmer effect around my face and bringing it forward a bit. So you can see where my contour is, and you can see my bronzer over the top. It's just giving me that extra warmth, maybe a little bit tanned. And then I can go back in with my contour brush and just make sure that line is really there. So you can see the difference, purely bronzer as contour on its own. And I can always take this out as well with the bronzer and make it look a bit more blended. And then bronzer and contour together. Now here it looks a bit dark and a bit straight and blocky, so I can just get my powder brush and blend it out. Essentially there are no mistakes to make. You can always blend something out, you can always change it, you can always make it better. So don't panic, just keep going, just keep making it look how you want it to look. Obviously this is a lot more of a statement than this side, so if you want something a bit more subtle, you can go for the bronzer on its own. If you want something a bit more out there, you can go for the contour. The contour is always great for an evening because it just gives your face that little bit of definition. And right, for your nose, I'm just going to use a really little round brush. So this is a fluffy brush, it's nice and diffused. So just to give your nose that little bit of extra, all you need to do is basically draw around the edges of your nose. So what I like to do is start here in the inner corner of my eye, bring it down, and you can see how subtle I'm making this. I'm not going too dark, I can always add more. And then I'm going around my septum here, and I'm just going to dip back in again. I'm just going to go around my septum here and carry on round, just to make that nose look a little bit like it's had some surgery. Now you can see that it is really light. A lot of people like to go a lot darker than I do, but I have literally just done a little contour. I don't like to do too much, but you can see it has made a difference. It's made my nose look thinner. If you feel like the lines on your nose are too strong or don't look quite right, you can always get your powder brush and blend it back out again. The same as with anywhere else in your contour. So it's just a case of trial and error, taking your time, getting it right, and eventually you'll be able to do it so fast because you'll just be used to doing it. So you can see that I've got the contour side with the bronzer over the top, and then I've just got purely bronzer as contour, which gives me a more subtle side. And that's it. Contouring is something a lot of people are afraid of, but really it is just remembering that it is from here, from the curve of your eyebrow to your tragus. So you're making like a little triangle here and you're just doing it down this line here. Same on this side, the curve of my eyebrow down to there and up to my tragus here. Some people like to do a figure of 8 motion, so they like, if you want a more diffused look, you don't want a really straight line, you can always get a fluffier brush, so a bigger brush like this, like my powder brush, and get in with the bronzer and do a figure of 8 and really blend it out all over the place to just make it look a little bit more diffused. So really diffuse there, so you're contoured out but it's further around your face, it's given a nice effect. You could also do this side with your bronzer just to give it a nice colour, and you can see that it's a bit higher up. But essentially contour is about framing, so all I've done is pushed back areas of my face like my jawline here to make my face appear slimmer, like the hollow of my cheek here to make my cheekbone more pronounced, and just framed around my head here just to give it a little bit, and then framed around the sides of my nose and underneath, so it's all nicely framed. That's it for contour, and join me for the next video. I hope you're enjoying them. If you've got anything you really want to learn, please do ask, and I'll see you on the next one.